Good evening and a very warm welcome to you for our final episode of the year of Designing Cities for All. Of course, that's our 2-year-long research and activity program in which we take a deep dive into designing products, systems and places for all. And tonight we've got a festive touch because it's our 1-year anniversary, and we will celebrate that, and we are going to look back at the first year of the project. And later on we are going to present a book full of essays, and we celebrate the first year with those essays as well. The title of the book is 18 Perspectives of Designing Cities for All. But before we do that, we have to take a moment to realize that every end has got a new beginning, but this is certainly an end of an era, because our program maker, Dimphy Brown, who joins me here at the table, this is your final program, not only for Designing Cities for All, but also for Pakhuis de Zwijger.
It is.
That's
after 8.5 years.
Weird. You've been here for 8.5 years. Yeah?
I know. But that's why this one is extra special, right? It's the last one, but it's also a celebration of a beautiful year. Although we're still in a weird situation.
Give us an insight, because you really thought of designing cities because of what? Why did you create this project?
Well, the reason we started this project was because, well, you and me have been organizing programs, events, talk shows about design for many years now.
Many years.
And every time we invited awesome designers to talk about design, but what we've also seen is that, especially in the last couple of years, the talk shifted from how we can also answer questions that come from society. You know, it's societal challenges, whether it's sustainability. There are many challenges to think of, but what we've also seen is that one of the challenges that we talked about a lot was also how we can actually, well, not fix, because we haven't fixed it yet, but inequality. And I think that was something that was in every program that we organized about design, whether it was or wasn't the subject, it always popped up. And that's why we thought it deserved a special line of our series of programs. So what we did is, our director Egbert Frans and I, we decided to take on all our frustration, write a project proposal, and that resulted in a 2-year research and activity program, which is called Designing Cities for All, which we were able to develop with help of the Creative Industry Fund. And we are now at the end of the first year, and what we have seen, what we have done is actually a mix of different activities. Obviously, we're still in a COVID situation, which that's why we had to be a little bit flexible, but we organized many activities like, well, livecast, like we're doing now. Luckily, we were also able to invite some people in the studio, but we had a lot of interaction online as well, luckily.
But what was the biggest goal in order to create this program? What was the point on the horizon that you wanted to go to?
I think, and we will later on talk about that as well, I think what we see is that we always talk about how design can probably solve some of the issues that we're facing. But what we noticed, and that is something that became really clear in this year as well, that design also causes a lot of those problems.
Can you give an example of that? What sticks to your mind if you think of the problems design can cause? Design can cause,
well, just an rather easy example. Sometimes it's easier to give examples that are related, for example, to product design. For example, how we design cars. Because what we still do is use a male body as the standard for testing cars.
Yeah, the crash test dummies that are being used are based on the general, whatever that might mean, the general male.
Exactly, and so they are testing since 2011. They are testing with female bodies or test dummies, but that is only a 70% version of their male dummy, while the weight is differently divided in a female body than in a male body. So in that sense, it's still weird. Why are we still using those dummies for testing cars, right? And what you can see in the statistics is that the accidents that non-male bodies face cause much more
the injuries
problems. The injuries are bigger.
Right.
So that's just one example, but I can name so many.
Yeah, and you've decided you created the program to invite fellows as well. So we had loads of lovely fellows that contributed to the programs as well. Where did the idea of fellows stem from?
Well, it's also that we don't own all the knowledge, right? So that's why we invited a lot of speakers, participants, but we also invited a few fellows to stick with us a little bit longer and curate part of the program. So they helped us create the live cast, but we also organized a book club together with them. We made a whole online research trial together with them where we can share all the knowledge that we gathered together, but they also brought from their own professional lived experience. So in the 2 years, we have 6 fellows, and these are the 3 that you now see on the screen. It's Liongo Juliana, an architect, Indy Johar and Joost Beundeman of London-based Dark Matter Labs, and future technologist Galit Ariel. And with them, we took a deep dive in themes that they are already embracing in their own work, but we explored it a little bit more and invited extra guests. And I think for all the fellows, it was also a really nice addition to what they were already doing. Have an excuse to invite awesome people from all over the world to join.
Later on, we will be talking to a couple of fellows who will be joining us in the program tonight as well. But before we do that, I want to have a top 3 for your most memorable moments of the past year.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I challenge you to mention those 3, right? Okay.
I'll think about a couple. But what's your top 3?
I think one of the moments was an episode where Liongo invited musicians, and he invited flutist Ronald Snijders. Oh, you wanted to mention that one too? Yeah, I really like that because Ronald, he's a flutist, and he is also he knows a lot about music history, and he did perform, but he also sat at the table. And who was also a guest during that episode was, for example, architect Francine Hoebe. And I really liked having them sit next to each other at the table to talk about architecture. And what a lot of people don't know is that Ronald also has a technical background as an engineer. So it was really interesting to hear him talk about architecture as well. And what was a really nice comparison is that we compared the way you compose Surinamese music because of the history of that country. It's also that everyone recognizes something in the music where you get that sense of belonging, as in, okay, I recognize something, this is home. And we were wondering, can we design buildings or areas the same way that we compose that kind of music? So that was a really interesting talk.
It was very interesting to have that crossover, how also music theory can influence your vision, the ideas that you have about designing cities and design in general as well. Yeah. So I remember that
it was
as well.
The whole series was interesting because it was about the relationship between architecture and identity.
Yeah.
And that
we've got exactly 30 seconds for you.
Okay, what is your favorite moment then?
Well, I will do that in a moment. First, your 2 favorites, and then I have one general one that's quite important for me. That's a quite important insight for me.
Okay, I'm really curious about that. I think you have to go first. Let me think for a minute.
No, what I noticed is that it's not one quick fix, because whenever you talk about one domain of design, you always come back, you revert back to systems behind design. Yeah. Who has a seat at the table? Who can decide?
Yeah, and whose voice counts, right? Because sometimes people are involved, but the question is like, are we heard in the same way?
And that's the thing for me that is most, what was an insight is that you can't fix design by itself. You have to fix society, and as a result of systems that are being fixed in society, design will follow in that sense as well. So that was my biggest insight.
Yeah, and I think that is also nice, the way we define design in this project.
Yeah. Well, let's not talk about ourselves anymore, but let's talk about the fellows that are here.
Yep.
We've invited Galit Ariel and Joost Bunderman. Joost and Galit, are you there online?
Jazeker.
There you are.
Indeed.
A warm welcome to you all. Nice to have you back. Nice to have you at this celebratory evening tonight. We would have loved to have you here in real life and you know, drink a glass of whatever, but unfortunately that's not possible. If we look back at the fellowship, and Joost, let's start with you. Can you tell us what was most important for yourself, for your work during your fellowship for Designing Cities for All?
Yeah, with pleasure. I think it was a great opportunity for Indy and myself to really reflect on what we have been doing in the space around cities, climate change, and democracies, and to reflect on that and push forward an argument that we knew was important, but that we probably had underexplored over the past period. So this idea of genuinely transitioning together and recognizing that the shifts we have to make, the foundational shifts we have to make in response to the climate crisis, how in very many different ways they need to be supported by very, very inclusive ways of working, because we can only transition as democracies genuinely together. If we don't do that, we won't have the mandate for it, the transition will not succeed, and as a society we will fail. And so over the three sessions in our triptych, we explored that with a whole range of speakers, and that was just a delight. And I think it gave us a really important sort of jumping off point for much of our current work, which takes these investigations around inclusive democracies in the context of the climate crisis much further.
And you know, the developments have gone very quickly in the past couple of months. If you read the news, the climate change is, of course, very current. And you had did anything influence your way of thinking that happened in the past couple of months after your fellowship has ended?
No, I mean, and as you can see in the essay, we started doing a lot of research on the depth of the crisis, the multifaceted nature of the crisis, and so much of that research has afterwards, I think, been highlighted and so foregrounded in the run-up to COP, the Glasgow conference. Mm-hmm. Of course, the Glasgow conference in many ways was like an anticlimax, right? Some progress made, not a lot. I think it really shows the
optimistic?
limits.
Are you optimistic about the future? Because, like you said, Glasgow didn't result in the things that we wanted it to. Even with the information that you gave us during your triptych, are you more pessimistic at the moment or not?
I mean, I think it's important to keep COP and Glasgow in perspective. It wasn't the total failure that it could have been. Some progress was made, but of course, in the context of the climate crisis, some progress is never enough. I think I am a little bit less optimistic about the institutions that we have and their ability to drive change. That's for sure. Our work in cities also really shows the limits of what sort of municipalities and other actors at city level on their own can achieve genuinely, and there's a lot they can do, but there's also a fair amount they can't do, and where government and so the international sphere genuinely needs to step up, and that didn't really happen. And I think as a result, people's lives in cities will be that much harder. The transition as it's being made and as it will have to be made will be that much harder, because fundamentally many of our leaders at government level internationally are letting us down. And as city dwellers and as city actors and as cities of co-creators of change, that means, again, that we have to work all the harder, and that will happen under ever greater pressure
Yes,
on our social bonds.
I do think that working hard is very important, and seeing opportunities where they are is very important as well. Thank you for now, Joost. Galit, if I switch to you, can you describe us what the triptych that you organized and your fellowship has resulted in for you personally?
I think for me personally, the winning point was really to transfer not just the shared knowledge of, what happens to us because of tech in cities and in mass populated environments, but to have a mutual understanding with the audience and the speakers about how it affects not our everyday life, but our culture in depth, and also how it's up to us really to hack it and make it work for us, regain agency so technology won't happen to us. And in areas such as cities, which are kind of built for capitalist consumption and efficiency, it seems like, the best solution for everything, but a lot of the time, it actually devoids these habitats from actually having real communities and real connections and real effect and impact.
Yeah, and the importance of communities is great. And what stuck to me in the final episode that we did of your triptych was that one of the central questions that he posed was, who owns the city? And that it was said then that actually nobody owns the city. We have to take care of the city, and we have to make sure the city is going to be there for future generations as well. Is that an idea that you will elaborate on as well?
Totally. I'm having my post-human summer or year, in any case, looking outside the anthropocentric idea that, humanity is the center of the universe. Yes, we do some interesting things, but I think we forgot, with all our obsession to systems, we forgot about bigger ecosystems, like Joost is busy with, like the ecosystem of our entire planet, and the non-human things that have the right to exist there, and how can we live in a more sustainable way. And I don't mean about green, but more sustainable for humanity itself. For that, we have to think in ecosystems and not in system. And how can we advance and build missiles and go to wherever, the moon or Mars? We're here. And I think we can do better.
Rethinking systems in every which way. Yeah. Our time is unfortunately almost up. We will introduce new fellows tonight as well. Joost, is there any short advice you would like to give our fellows?
Yeah, I do have, well, it's almost like a request rather than advice. On my mind and on our mind at the moment is really thinking hard about what it genuinely means to live well in the context of adjusting to a 1.5 degree compatible lifestyle, a 1.5 degree climate change. Now, of course, that is something that we put front and center, and where we'd love to explore more. I'd love for whatever the fellows will want to be doing, and of course that's entirely their own trajectory. But if they could put any thought to what it would mean to live joyfully under a huge decrease in material consumption, because I think that will be such an important fundament to sort of human thriving, to live well with less in an inclusive way. And perhaps that is a gift, a question, an invitation to take that thinking on board.
We've heard that, and we'll pose the question to the future fellows as well. Galit, what is it that you would like to give the fellows of advice, or a question?
Help build a community to create small acts of change. Because I think in a lot of these programs, and this luckily isn't happening here, we talk about things and people gain knowledge, but I think gaining agency and really being able to take it into your personal life is the value of this specific fellowship. And it is important. And as Joost said, It's like TikTok, we can't just theorize. It's time for action and change.
The time is now. Well, thank you so much, Joost and Galit. Unfortunately, this is all the time that we have. But again, like I said in the programs and in the triptych as well, as soon as we are able to meet physically again here in De Zwijger, you're more than welcome. And I'm really looking forward to that time. So thank you so much for now.
Thank you both. It's been great.
See you in future. Bye-bye.
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 Thank you.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Especially the part what Galit also mentioned about the community thing. I think what was really nice to see was this year, although we had a little bit trouble with coming together live, it was really interesting to see how much sense of community there was among speakers and how they were involved. Yeah. I think differently than with other talk shows that we organized together.
I think the urgency, it was really there.
That was there.
And everybody
and also,
recognized that.
Everyone was so passionate, and also how we involved many students, for example, by talking to certain educational institute, but also the way we involved them with, for example, the book clubs that we organized. I think that was really nice to see. So I felt a lot of community sense, even though everything was online.
Yeah. Well, there's also a benefit to the fact that it was online, because every program is available online as well. If you go to the website dezwijger.nl/DCFA, you will find all the live casts there, and you can, if you miss an episode, you can look online to see that again.
Yeah.
And we've got a small clip where we have like a visual wrap-up of the year. Would you like to introduce that?
Yeah. Well, it was really hard to pick. Like, there were so many interesting people and so many interesting things they said. So what we tried to do is collect some of the quotes and made a summary of what was actually the story that we wanted to tell last year, right? And I think that worked out pretty fine. I got a little bit emotional. Maybe it was due to the music, but let's just take a look at it. And then we're going to talk with some more people, right?
Let's have a look. Welcome to Designing Cities for All, another episode, and it's part of our 2-year-long activity and research program,
where we take a deep dive into designing products, spaces, and systems for all.
Just because you feel safe, or you feel welcome, or you feel included, doesn't mean that everyone else around you feels the same way.
We don't stand alone. We're not individuals that somehow a planet or an island, you know?
And I think that's the beautiful thing of a diverse society, that everyone can add something from out of their own experience.
Things won't change if we just let things happen.
I think if you can build relationships and use design as a tool to build those relationships, the better off we're all going to be.
Everything around us was once designed and can therefore be redesigned.
Belonging is a very, very important concept.
You can try to take someone's place for a while, but you don't have the lived experience.
Let's begin by acknowledging similarity and affinity.
Be a person, not your role.
I think inclusion is not a choice.
Inclusion happens by design or not at all.
In order to create truly inclusive public spaces that are accessible to everyone, we have to underline what everyone actually is.
Real inclusion, it's got nothing to do with the norm, but it's like something that we create from all different perspectives.
You know, so even when we bring everybody at the table, does everybody's voice count the same?
Because it's a big question of who tells these stories.
You know, the more I explore about other cultures, other religions, is the more ingredients I have to make the architecture and to answer the questions I get from society.
Not fitting in was a blessing, or I would have turned out just like you.
Yeah. Not fitting in was a blessing, or I would have turned out just like you. That was amazing. It's the end of year, it's the music, it's Christmas. Everything becomes emotional now. But not only have we got this clip, not only have we got the live cast as well, but we've also got this, the book.
Yep.
18 Perspectives. Why did you develop this book?
Well, I think sometimes it's just nice to also have, I mean, you have like the live cast, you can listen to them, you can watch them, but sometimes it's also just nice to have a book for a little bit more in-depth, or, you know, read it back. And we asked a few of our speakers if they wanted to write an essay for us. And luckily, many of them said yes. So we got 18, we collected 18 stories in total, a mixture of people with different backgrounds, different professional backgrounds, to write about designing cities for all, their perspectives on it. And we have 3 chapters in it. One is I don't even know them by heart. I was like, okay, what are they again? Well, one is that cities of belongings, like how we create them, and also what it is to feel like you don't belong. I think it's really nice that many people wrote also from lived experience. The second one is that everything is design, which already gave us an insight on how design can also build solutions to that. And the other one is make it work, which is also like more practical tools to work on designing cities for all.
Great. Yeah. Well, this is it. And the design of the book is designed to be inclusive as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
A book is by default not inclusive. So one thing we did is also make it available that it's suitable to insert in a text-to-speech audio, so you can also listen to the book if you like. Another one is, for example, language, because we also see language as design. So how do you include inclusive language? Well, for one, that is, for example, look at words that we still use because we're a country with a colonial background, for example. The other one is use gender-neutral language, but also avoid the use of ableist language. And that is something that we still use a lot in our daily speech.
Ableist language is?
Well, for example, using the word see a lot, while not everyone is able to see. And for example, one of the examples is see a future that is bright. You could also use the word envision. So
but even in the physical design as well, because it's intentional that the book doesn't close the regular, so to speak, way that we
and one
used
of the
to.
reasons for that is, I could demonstrate it if that is shown. It's like when we open the book, for example, it stays open. And with a lot of books, if I can use this one, that's unfortunately not the case. So if you use, for example, a magnifier while reading, then it's easier to put your magnifier on the book, and you don't really have to use your hands to keep the book open. So that is one example, but also what you would probably notice is that the font is a little bit bigger, for example. So we did some things to make it easier to read, and I think I'm going to read a blog about it, because we should have more books.
You should explain. Like okay, then we're going to, we've looked back, and now we can look to our future as well. What is the next step in this program as well? Because you wanted to have a party, if I'm not mistaken.
A little bit of party? Well, I wanted to host a Zoom party, because I think we have some people in Zoom as well. I invited some of the speakers because I can share something about what is in the book, but why not ask the people who wrote it? So we have a host of people here at the table, and I would like to welcome you as well. As Maris Krill, very warm welcome to you. And Senai Gereap, do I say that? Pronounce it correctly?
Almost. Gereap.
Gabriel, that's it. So, very warm welcome to you. You've contributed to the book as well, so we'll talk about a little bit later what you contributed. But online, through Zoom, we've got Maggie Leung, Olutumin Kukoi, Aminata Cairo, Ruth Toro, and Galit and Joost are there as well. A warm welcome to you all. I have seen you all, and nice to have you online here. Maurice, if I start with you, you've contributed to the book as well on the perspectives on the designing cities for all. What was the biggest idea? That was scary, but the bottle just fell. What was the biggest idea of the essay that you contributed?
Yeah, well, Frans Lely and I worked together with Bernardine Walrecht, who previously worked at the Design Academy in Eindhoven. So for us, it was a really challenge to work with a designer. We as sociologists working with a designer, and to see how we can sort of combine our ideas, which partly come from looking at Amsterdam as a super diverse city, that's a sociological perspective, but then how can we build another way of communicating and participating of people by using tools from design.
Because it's important to redefine the city, because what you researched is that from 2018 onwards, there's no majority in Amsterdam anymore, and the city consists of minorities that live together. What does that mean for a city, for the development of the city, or the culture of a city?
Yeah, that's actually how we start the essay. So there's the phrase in Dutch, zo doen we het hier. This is how we do it here. And that usually refers to, say, the Dutch white way of doing things. And in the city of Amsterdam, majority-minority city, actually diversity has become the norm. So how do you work in a city, for instance, by designing a new square in a neighborhood? How do you do this while there is so much diversity in terms of the inhabitants that will use that square?
And whose voice is being heard?
And whose voice is being heard, but more importantly, of course, whose voices are marginalized or not heard. And how can you think of other ways of including people, and also not only by language or written words, so not only people that participate usually in this sort of events, but maybe also using other more art forms to reach out to people.
Right. And just for my sake, because I love to hear it, who's the least adjusted group in those city of minorities?
Yeah, that comes from our research, of course. We looked at those people that least of all cross these ethnic and racial barriers in the city, and that's the white Dutch people. So they usually live in a white bubble. So if you look at integration from that perspective, they are the least integrated group of the city.
Oh, thank you so much for now.
Can I add one thing?
Of course.
Because what I really liked in this essay is that you define diversity also in another way, not just on cultural background, etc. And I think that was what I really liked about the essay. But that's why people should also read it.
Very good, very good.
Thank you.
Senna, a warm welcome to you as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your contribution?
Sure. It's about AI, but it's also not about AI. The title of the contribution is Artificial Inclusion is the problem, not artificial intelligence. There's a lot of doom thinking about AI, and to some extent rightfully so. There are lots of issues going on with AI, with the application of algorithms in the public sector, in the private sector. But many of the problems that are caused by AI are caused because AI is not designed, developed, deployed in an inclusive manner. So it's not always about AI. The underlying issues with AI are not technical per se. They are predominantly social. Hence, artificial intelligence is not the problem, but artificial inclusion is.
And does that refer back to the remark I had at the beginning, that it's all about systems? Can you tell us a little about the systems of designing AI that makes it exclusive for people?
I just glanced through the book and glanced at the insights that are mentioned in the book. And each single insight that is mentioned there also holds for AI. So it's AI as a system, but many of these insights also hold for other systems as well.
Yeah, how can we change it? Because in the series, education has been mentioned as well. But what you can say is that, you know, if there are no engineers that are aware of inclusion that design AI, well, then we can't solve the problem. That's the easy answer. What's the real solution to that?
Well, there is no quick fix, as you mentioned. So thinking in terms of quick fixes, that's a huge problem. It's going to take a generation to make AI inclusive, and we should start now. We should have started earlier, educating the young, even at the elementary schools, on the basics of AI, because it's not complex. It's about systems.
I don't want to wait a whole generation. What can I do?
Even you can learn on AI and also ask about AI. If you don't know much about AI, you can ask, and you can specifically ask how AI could hamper your life at the moment because of the decisions that a bank makes for you or the government makes for you. These are simple questions that you should ask. So if you don't have the time to wait, ask questions now.
Yeah, right. unfortunately, I see that the policymakers, if you look at the government, if you look at the politicians, they are not well informed. They haven't got a clue. So I can ask questions. I will do that as well. I do know that the people in power don't have the answers or don't have a real idea of what the problem exactly is. How can we solve that?
By asking questions, even to those in power. Take a look at the child benefit scandal.
Yeah.
It's these issues, such issues, that really have a detrimental impact on many lives that are causing questions.
But we know it's not. Well, it's not changing at all.
I doubt that.
You doubt that?
There is change. It's coming slowly, but it's coming.
Okay. From, like they say, from your mouth to God's ears. Let's go to the guests online. Aminata Cairo, are you there? And a warm welcome to you.
I am here.
Good to see you. That is good to. This is about inclusive language and ableist language. I just noticed myself that I said, "Good to see you."
You can see, so you're okay.
That is okay. I'm not being ableist. I have to learn as well. So asking questions, like you said, is very important. Can you tell us about your essay, Aminata, "Designing Cities for All," a fascinating concept?
Yeah, actually, I think it ties into what Joost was saying earlier. Talking about, what I focused on was personal experience. And Joost talked a little bit of, I think you asked him, are you still positive? So I talked based on my personal experience, having grown up in Amsterdam and then leaving and coming back, and to be purposeful about being positive, even though what I see is not very positive. And so you can make a choice in that. Do you give up hope? There's certain things that I see. I don't feel like I belong anymore. Everybody has moved away, that kind of stuff. And I see how people are being pushed out, and how, in spite of that, can you still be positive? Or if not, you just, shrivel up and, whatever
Cry in the corner somewhere.
Have to find something positive. So that's basically what I wrote about.
Yeah, and what would you also say is that for example, the group of working class people want is being overlooked. Why is that?
Yes. Well, and that goes back to also what I just heard. To me, it's not just about asking questions, but do you care? And that to me, that's the part that keeps missing. It's like, we can do this because it's more efficient, because it makes more money. Do you care about these people? And that's the part to me that's lacking. The elderly population, when you remove benches, that has an impact on people. When you remove the tram stops, that has an impact on people.
But how can we make people care? Because a lot of people don't care, and that's why things are going wrong. How can you make people in power care, or anybody care?
The $1 million question that I think that's why we do this. Part of it is to keep talking and pulling on people's ears, but that's very hard, because what I keep seeing is that money is more important than the people. That sounds rather negative, but that's and when I see when houses are empty, immediately they're being sold, where they used to be for rent, or if they are rented out at the highest rate. It's because I can, not if it's nice or whether I should or what it means to us as a community. It's because I can, and I can advance and get richer or whatever. That's what I see. So I don't have that answer yet.
No, and I like the fact that you're being optimistic. I'm a pessimist by heart, so my mouth says what I think in that sense. But after the longest formation in history, we finally have a new government, and it's with the same people. So the same policies are going to be upheld. How can you be positive if nothing really changes?
Well, but what also just said. That some things do change, even with the government, as much of a theatrical spectacle as it is. Some things are being highlighted that weren't before, even when it comes to racism or how people are treating each other. It's almost like a mirror, like, this is what it's really like. We can no longer deny that it's there. How people treat each other in these debates is like, whoa. So hopefully that will influence how we vote, what we ask, and what we demand of those who represent us. is no longer behind closed doors. It's out in the open now. So that's something, at least to me it is. You know, as painful, as ugly as it is, I'm grateful. Thank you. At least we see it now. Because now when I open my mouth, there's nobody saying, oh, you made that stuff up. No, go ahead and watch. Because it's right there for you to see, and it cannot be denied. So
that's true.
Well, thank you for now, Aminata. Maggie, one central idea of your essay is the sense of belonging. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I have to turn on myself first.
Yeah.
It was interesting exercise for me, I have to say, because when I accepted the invitation to come and talk to friends, and like I was asked by Jonathan and Dimfi that you have to bring something to show, sense of belonging, and that got me really thinking. Of course, it is a concept that we use a lot and think about a lot, really conceptualize a lot, right? As a migration scholar, but if we are asked to bring something that symbolizes, it was actually not an easy exercise because it could mean so many things. And I was searching in my own history, and I found a little something that I thought could symbolize sense of belonging for me. And in that exercise, I could make so many connections to a research project that we're doing now, right? It's about, places that are welcoming, that are open for future making among people of different backgrounds. So it's about migrant and so-called newcomers or not so newcomers, or the so-called natives, how people of different backgrounds can create futures together. And it's important, one of the important elements indeed is the space to let people to build this sense of belonging. And for me, that has a lot to do with, of course, it's about some history, but it's also about openness for change, openness for new experiment, how futures are being co-created. And like my jade ring, it also probably also means a sense of security somehow. So in my book chapter, I was, sort of experimenting myself, the concept of sense of belonging. And but for me, at the end, I think it's very important that it should be something that is dynamic. It's not about going always back to the roots, and the root is something coherent, but rather it is something that in the making, and it's a co-creative space.
How can we make sure that cities like Amsterdam, but big cities like Paris and London as well, how can you keep them welcome when it seems like that turns into, places for the rich or places for the privileged? How can you make sure that, those cities are, still welcoming other people that don't belong to the rich or the privileged?
Yeah, I mean, it is indeed a big problem in the neoliberal, society. And that I think, we can use the term design. And for me, designing is really about, investing efforts. It's about politics. It's about investment. It's about energy people put into, how different sectors, different stakeholders have to together. If that is our vision, to have these cities or non-cities or, non-urban areas to be inclusive and welcoming. So, it is, of course, we don't have a magic solution, but I think in all levels, right, politics, business, civil societies have to. And I think we need that concerted. First, we have to make sure that that is important for us, right? So I think, in different levels, we can make cities or, as said, non-city spaces more inclusive and more welcoming.
Yeah, and if you talk about investing, it's not in the economical sense. You have to try. What ways of investing are there?
Oh yeah, there are all kinds, right? Like, of course, it's also about monetary money investment, but it's also about energy. I think engagement. Just linked to the project that in my chapter I write. Indeed, I was also provoking, right? Because I was asked to write designing cities for all, but our project is about so-called peripherized areas in Europe. So those are also areas that, can be more welcoming or should become more welcoming. And there we use the term investing, welcoming places, investment, and investing as in the sense of engaging in different ways. And that is not only about the native, the people who are already there to be open and welcome those newcomers. In our research, we find many examples where it is really a co-creative effort, How actually maybe you say the newcomers are actually investing energy, money, knowledge, ideas to make these places a place of new futures, where the native also feel more in place again, because they were displaced, right? Because these are peripherized areas where money has gone, people have gone, and now we have new energy coming into these places. So they become again more welcoming, more safe for those who were so-called left behind.
Right.
And so in my chapter, I'm also trying to debunk this, who is welcoming whom, and who is giving space for sense of belonging to whom. So it is actually a lot more complicated than maybe sometimes we usually think.
Yeah. Well, thank you for now. Ruth, can I go to you, please? And how does this connect to fashion?
Yes, well, thank you very much. I'm very agree with all my colleagues here. Actually, inclusion, diversity, equality is not an easy topic. And I think all of us also have some biases because we see our own experience and etc. So we basically at Moving Mood, we are focusing on the accessibility of fashion because that's a matter of your age, gender, religion, culture. Yes, accessibility and abilities affect all of us. Yes, and doesn't matter if you use the city or not, but dress, you have to dress every day. Yes, you dress every day to come here. So which kind of clothing you are wearing? Is it comfortable for you? Are our spaces, cities, museums, libraries accessible? Like the books, yes, and I'm very happy that you try to make it as accessible as possible. And for sure, you are going to increase your readers and your market. So thank you for this. So basically what we want is we want to be nice. We want to show our culture. We want to show our style. And we want to be comfortable also. Yes, because dressing, as I said, we do it every day. So how can we do it in a comfortable way, in a way that respect your culture, your religion, your cultural roots, backgrounds, yes? But also you can rely and you can give your own personality through the clothing because it's the first thing you see from a person. So we work on this topic, how we can make clothing accessible without doing an adaptive line.
And can you see a development in the past decade, for example? Is that changing? Is clothing and fashion becoming more and more accessible, or is it still difficult?
Well, we're on the way. We are on the way. We are better than 10 years back because I can see now more awareness and there are more adaptive fashion brands coming in, especially from young generations. We are receiving, every year we receive several students doing their thesis on adaptive fashion, so it's good. So this didn't happen 10 years back. But as we was mentioned before, okay, we need to invest in educating the youngest. But what we do with the elders, what we do with our generation, yes? Of course, we need to empower the brands and the designers how they can do it because they don't know. They think sometimes it's something very difficult and it's not. Mm-hmm. You need the knowledge. What is the need of a person with physical, with cognitive, with sensory? You see, what is the need of a space to be inclusive for a non-gender person, for a foreigner, how we can welcome everyone. Yeah. So I think after the COVID, yes, then something good bring us the COVID. Yeah, I believe that. All of us, we are more human.
Yeah. And what was one biggest takeaway of the programs that we had here is that if you design for the marginalized, it's not only meant for the marginalized, but it can be adapted and embraced by everybody actually, and everybody will benefit from that. A sneaker that we featured in one of our programs that's easy accessible was the biggest example of that. It was designed for people that had difficulty putting on regular, so to speak, old-fashioned sneakers, but in this way everybody could benefit from it. Is that a line of thought that you agree with as well?
Yes, inclusive for us, it's like this, that everyone can use the same product without the need to adapt or adjust. But this is not only for fashion, it's for all products and services. Mm-hmm. If a person with physical, cognitive or sensory disability can use it, it's a big, easy way to wear it or to use it for everybody. Understandable, readable, easy access, is the same. What do you prefer, a stairs or a ramp? For sure than a ramp, because it's much easier to use. Yeah, so when we design for accessibility, all the society benefits. This is the main idea.
Yes. Thank you for now. Joost, we've spoken to you as well before about your fellowship. What is your contribution in the book? What did your essay say?
Well, it consists of a couple of parts. And the first 2 pages or so, we decided it was useful to just list some of the bad news. It was we wrote it over the summer, and it was when all of Europe was on fire. Right, literally, it's like with every week that went by, another country was on fire, and we felt it was important to name that and to record that and to not step over the fact that that this was happening. And to not shy away from listing some of the deep consequences and interrelationships and sort of cascading emergencies that come from the climate crisis. So as a result of which, the first half of the essay is basically a litany of bad news indeed. And then we took it back to basics and said, look, if we're going to address what are the things we must be able to do, and must be able to do more effectively than we're able to do now. And so we took inspiration from the different guests that we had during the live casts, and focused on issues like mandate formation and the importance of enabling the growing concern of citizens to be expressed through new mechanisms and new instruments for democratic deliberation, like climate assemblies. And then we started talking about different domains that we must be able to intervene in, including food, fashion, and other forms of consumption, etc. So what it is a plea really for sort of systemically looking at these transition domains and transition mechanisms and instruments, and as the summer turned into autumn, we now have fewer fires, more floods, and more tornadoes, but the challenges remain the same, and we see it as almost like an agenda for what we ourselves need to explore further over the next few years.
Yeah, great. It's a very interesting read, so thank you for that. And Galit, to close it off, you talked about technology and inequality in our technological environment. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I write as ecosystem because I believe in ecosystems. So my piece talks a little bit about my childhood experience of cities and running away from home to hang in cities because I love cities. And then talking about this whole concept of smart cities, which actually really means efficient, and kind of asking, how can we escape that system of efficiency, and what are the things that are that we're losing with that efficiency? And some of it is of course biases that are built into machine thinking, and biases not just because they're baked in biases, but this idea that if it's quantifiable, it's valuable, and what is not quantifiable is less valuable, is something that we really need to change, I think, and how to kind of like find ways to hack the city. The whole fellowship, I called it hacking the city, hacking the notions of what is a city, what is a smart city, who gets to participate and who gets to choose not to, and how do we participate in a more critical way, because it's very easy to be sold on technology will solve everything. technology solves some things, it cannot solve everything, and it also causes problems. And we saw it with every single speaker here. You know, overconsumption, over thriving on the wrong ways can also cause harm. So how do we define happiness? How do we define thriving? Is it about making more money by, higher rent, or is it about, living a better life? And what does that mean, especially in light of reality itself?
Right. Thank you so much, Khalid. Time is running out, so I only have a couple of minutes more to talk about this. Maurice, if I go back to you, are we able to change systems? And because everything that we said, it's only a small domain of the bigger problem. The whole systematic change. We thought COVID would, reset the world. It actually didn't. Can we change systems? Are we able to do that?
Well, for me, the whole idea of the essay that we've written together, for me, the pivotal moment was that we need to use more creativity and playfulness. Because systems cannot compete with playfulness and creativity. So that's actually the undercurrent that is always in society. And actually, if we can sort of unearth that, that could be a powerful movement. Yeah. And that's basically what we suggest.
Creativity, have that at the forefront.
And playfulness.
And playfulness as well.
And academics are not known for their playfulness, so that was a revelation for me.
I can imagine. Senai, is that playfulness and creativity, is that possible to include that in AI? Because it's about systems, it's about zeros and ones.
No, not at all. I think it's perhaps. Yeah, it's about zeros and ones in a way, but embedded in a context. And that context needs to be, I fully agree with you, Maurice. I teach my students most important things in this field are now creativity, resilience, human resilience, and skills, digital skills and other skills. Yeah. A mix of those three is needed to make AI, technology, systems, more inclusive, and also future-proof in a way.
Right. Time is up, unfortunately, so I would like to thank you so much for your contributions. Also, with the contributors online, thank you for joining us online. Like I said, when this crisis is over, we will have this big party here. See you later on, and thank you so much for your contribution. And now we've come to the end, at least for the viewers that are watching us through AT5. For all our other viewers who are watching us through Zoom, through YouTube, and on the Pakhuis de Zwijger website, in a minute we will continue this program, and we will also introduce our fellows for 2022. The book we talked about, that will be on sale as of December 13th, and it will cost you €15, and you can buy it through Pakhuis de Zwijger, or you can buy it at the Atheneum bookstore at Spij Amsterdam. And if you'd like to read 18 perspectives of designing cities with audio, that's possible. You will find a PDF with the plain text on the audio page on the website, and you can use that to your preferred text-to-speech audio reader, and you can create your own Designing Cities for All listening experience. And we will be back with Designing Cities for All, the new programs. It will start on January the 24th in the next year. And in the first episode, we will have the first fellow, and I can reveal they're also here at the table. That would be One World. That's still a secret, though. And we will start with a series about caring cities. For now, we will have a 20-second break. So if you watch us online, please stay online. And thank you so much to all of viewers from AT5. We'll continue in a bit. Bye-bye. And we are back. And joining us at the table now are the Designing Cities for All Fellows 2022. I would like to introduce you to Saada Noorhusen. A warm welcome to you. On that side, we've got Edwin Gardner, who we saw before as well, and Christian Fruneau. And online, we are joined by Dafina Misijan. Dafina, are you there?
Yes, I am.
A very warm welcome to you. We will return to you in a minute, but I would like to start with Saada. Nice to have you here. You're the chief editor of One World, and you will be our next Designing Cities for All Fellow starting in January.
Yeah.
For the people, I don't know, I think everybody does know what One World is, but those two people who don't, tell us please what One World is.
One World is a offline and online magazine, daily online, from 2022 on, quarterly magazine. This year we made 2 magazines.
Hard copy.
Yes, and as you can see on the big screen, oh, that's very current, thank you. This week, actually on Thursday, we are celebrating our 10th year anniversary. I've been with the magazine since 2018. As chief editor, and since this year as co-owner or co-licensee of the title, which makes it the only black-owned media title in this country, at least in magazine land.
Yeah. And what's the aim of One World? Because
so I think we've kind of dubbed it journalism for justice. So our main topics, if you could kind of summarize it, would be sustainability, identity, and human rights. I actually don't like, and that's actually my partner, John. We're in this together. And the aim is to, kind of brings us to why I was asked to do this fellow, I guess. And that's because we don't just, report, but we also aim to kind of redesign journalism.
Yeah, and what I think is remarkable and great is that you give a platform to voices that aren't usually being heard. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
I guess I kind of try to stay away from things like giving people a platform or giving them a voice, or usually people already have that. But it's more like, it's about decentering, So, for instance, I studied journalism and I practiced journalism within the mainstream for a long time. Before I got to One World, I used to work for Trouw and for Volkskrant and Elsevier. Which is weird, thinking about it now. But anyway.
Why is it weird?
Well, it's not weird, actually, in the sense that, it's a it's a long way from where I am now. And especially, if we look at media, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's been a lot of right-wing influence.
Absolutely.
But also within media titles that used to not identify as that. So
right wing's being mainstreamed in a sense.
It's being mainstreamed, absolutely, and in a very obvious way. So, anyway, I used to work in media a lot, and in the mainstream media, and we kind of have given ourselves. If it boils down to just kind of checking the power structures, right? But I feel like media education, journalism education, but also media practice is not built to check the power structures within media. So this is, I think there's a gap there. We don't even know how to do that, really, because we're so used to criticizing other power structures that we haven't found a good system to see what we're doing ourselves when it comes to abuse of power, when it comes to being self-reflective, when it comes to being transparent about what's going wrong, or some of the things that we're not equipped to do, And these are the things that we're experimenting with, like being open. When you say giving people a platform, we're trying to be open towards criticism. So when people criticize us, when they're saying, for instance, one of the major things, of course, within media is language. You were talking about things like, a lot of the words that I heard this evening was inclusive, right? And that sounds very progressive, but to me, inclusivity is still kind of departing from the center and departing from the dominant gaze, departing from whiteness, departing from Westernness.
Am I correct in saying that inclusivity isn't a point that you have to reach, but it's, for me at least, it's a learning curve. Like that you have to adjust it day by day almost.
Yeah, but it still centers people that are already in power, giving them the opportunity to get to that learning curve, you know, instead of decentering. And decentering actually means that you kind of, you know, you embrace your own center and then work from there. And I think if you do that, like I've seen over the past 3 years since I've been with One World, the center will gravitate towards you. Because one of the things we've started doing is like, we've tried, I'm not saying we're there, right? It's like a work in progress, but we've tried to decolonize our language. We've tried to kind of, you know, look at things from a perspective that's even uncomfortable for us, you know? And what happened was that mainstream media that could have, you know, ignored us easily, then started copying us. Of course, without giving us credit. That's fine. We're okay. But you know, those are things that you see that happens. You see that, you know, once you start moving, other things start moving with you. So, yeah, I think that's what we're trying to do.
What can we expect from your fellowship?
A lot of ruckus. No, I don't know. No, no. I think what I'm trying to do is I think I'm trying to invite people into the practice of journalism, because it's not always it's a very closed off sector. I think it's kind of mysterious for many people, like who makes it, how is it made, what are the dilemmas that we face, what are the choices we have to make every day, and I don't want to give away everything, but we'll look at language, of course, which is a very big driver for us from different angles. We'll look at image, and and I think we'll look at design as well, you know.
Right. And, you know, if you look back in March, because your fellowship lasts until March, what would you be the most proud of if you can achieve that?
Wow, I don't know. I think I'd have to think about that. I don't know if I think it would be. I think I would be proud if more people would be engaged with journalism, because I think it is a very it's an elitist, you know, segregated part of society, which it shouldn't be. And I would hope that a lot of people are interested in engaging at least, and not just subscribing and everything, but, you know, maybe be interested in working in it. Or
Great. Thank you so much for now. Our next fellow that starts in March and that will last until June 2022 is Dafini Misijan. A warm welcome to you. You're Assistant Professor Human Rights and the Environment. Am I correct in assuming that your fellowship will be about nature's rights, environmental justice and a nature-inclusive design?
Yes, partially. So I will indeed focus on environmental and climate justice. So I will look at how there are different inequalities, both social inequalities, and how they have an effect also on environmental inequalities. And so that will be some of the topics that I will be looking at.
Dark Matter Lab, Indy Johar and Joost, who we just saw, also focused on the environmental challenges that we have. Is what they did going to be different from what you will be doing?
I think that what I bring to the conversation is looking at the law. So I have a legal background. So I look a little bit closer at how regulations play a part in this. On the one hand, you can say that law can be very complicit in bringing about environmental degradation, in actually orchestrating what climate injustice looks like. But law can also play an active part in how we can balance it out, how we can give more rights to certain marginalized and excluded communities. And I try to look at how this really relates to one another.
Right. And if you, there was a lot of talk in the past couple of months as well about non-human entities in society or in environment, giving them a voice. Is our non-human entities a part of your fellowship as well?
I still have to think about that. I've done research previously about rights of nature, indeed. And what I think is very interesting in that discussion is how it kind of started as more of a movement of indigenous communities. So really coming from that ontology, from their worldviews, and how it's now kind of translated into also non-indigenous communities. But that also brings some challenges with it. We have issues around co-optation of these terms. And sometimes we can also see that rights of nature are actually used against communities. So I really try to look at it from a justice perspective. And I'm not sure if rights of nature will be a part of it yet. I hope to kind of focus more locally on the Dutch context and also look at, for instance, the context of the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Right. My final question, again, used the law to prove a point, and the case against Shell did the same thing. Is that going to be a part of your fellowship as well?
I think the Urgenda case has brought basically a lot of interesting points, one of them being that human rights are now seen as connected to environmental rights. Before that, environmental rights were seen as kind of this other field. What I think will be interesting to look at in Urgenda is also how it relates to the Kingdom of the Netherlands. We have now a confirmation that those living within European Netherlands have certain rights, or the state has a certain duty towards those citizens. But what about the citizens in the kingdom? So I look forward to kind of discussing that and putting that under a magnifying glass.
Great. Your fellowship will end in June. Let's move to June, let's move to the future, and let's move to you looking back to your fellowship. What will you be most proud of?
Well, I hope that I have contributed to the dialogue on these issues and also made very clear what some of the issues are in the Dutch context. I think a lot of people are unaware of some of the issues that we're having in the Netherlands when it comes to environmental issues such as air pollution, and how that is different in different areas, how it also is exacerbated by social injustice. And I also think it will be very nice to have the book club and also interact with a lot of other people to get their input on what these issues can be, how we can relate to that, and how we can bring the issue of design into it.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really looking forward to your fellowship. And, well, we'll see each other during your fellowship. Bye-bye.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
And from September onwards, our next fellows will be the Chrononauten, and they're joining us here at the table, Edwin Gardner and Christian Frenot, and you're the founders of Studio Monarch as well. And the fellowship is about including future generation in our designs and how can we be good ancestors. It reminds me of the book that Roman Krasnarek wrote. Then what's the connection to that?
Well, well, I mean, the connection, of course, is that it's we take a similar perspective. So our thinking is very much rooted in long-term thinking. So it's also our subtitle of the Chrononaut is an atlas for the long now. So yeah, centuries backwards or millennia, and also let's say the same time span forwards. That's kind of the, let's say, arena for our thinking. So that's what we very much have in common.
And how will that translate to the fellowship that you're preparing?
Yeah, we're still thinking about what we're going to do. The future is wide and deep, so you can have a zillion different kind of topics you can explore. So yeah, we're thinking about 3 topics now that might be interesting. One of them is research of exploring how the World Wide Web can function as a healthy public space. And another one is thinking about taxes as a design tool. For instance, what happens when you when you abolish the right to inherit, what happens to the city? Things like that. I mean, for a government, the taxing system is one of their biggest tools in shaping society. So what can you do with that? That's one topic we think might be interesting. And the other one is an old one we called thick space. Maybe Edwin can
so
talk a bit more about that.
It's a bit, of course, how we envision space and design the city kind of starts before we are designing. So how we, let's say, our spatial imagination, the blank canvas, the kind of modernist, kind of objective, universal, empty space. I mean, the space here is the same as on the other side of the planet. And of course, that's a problem in even envisioning how a city could be. So, of course, spaces are places, or city are places, but also space is not an empty vacuum. It's filled with life, with values, social life, cultural ideas. So it's actually full of stuff. And actually the modernist kind of imagination of space is empty. It's a vacuum where we can do anything we want. We start from scratch. And that's also, I think, something that needs re-envisioning.
Because if you talk about designing cities, it's not a blank canvas that you just can work on. You have already the structures in place that you have to deal with. And if you connect cities to future generations, it's often about preservation. How can we preserve our city to give to next generations? But is that the road that you find interesting as well? Because preservation is not always beneficial for future generations either.
No, I think, and that's, if you, let's say, include future generations, or I know, very current for, of course, the Netherlands, where half of it is below sea level. I mean, there's a future where actually our country might not be there. And if we don't include that in our envisioning of space and thinking about the place where we are, then we're missing a very big part of the picture.
But now I'm very curious, how do you include that future into you? Because then it's all over.
No, it's not over. It's a possibility space. So still we can do things whether this future can be worse or better. So, and that's the interesting thing, I think, of the future, that it's not there yet. And let's say the way we can change it is here at this table.
Right. And here we can decide whether it's going to be worse or better. Do you will include the worst case scenarios in your fellowship as well?
Well, I think it's always, I mean, I think the worst case scenarios are always the easy ones, because those are in the news, those are in our Hollywood movies. So I think dystopia is especially nowadays very present. It's actually harder to imagine the other ones. How could it end well? And I think that's also an exercise that is very necessary to do.
Right. And for you, the same question at the end of your fellowship, what would you be the most proud of?
Like I said, it's been said before, but it would be nice if the topic we explore adds to the conversation. And it would be even nicer if we can distill from that, from the fellowship we had, like a really inspiring or otherwise moving future scenario. I mean, I think the interesting thing about future scenarios is that they're both, if they're credible scenarios, they're both sort of based on what we know today. So they're based in fact, but it's fiction, right? So it should inspire and confront. It should make you think about. It should open your mind about new possibilities to explore and things like that. I think that's the interesting. So that would be really nice if our essay, let's say, if that's our end product, could have some speculative envisioning.
So am I correct in saying it's a tool to think about the future? It's not the end all or be all. It's not the scenario that's going to happen, but it's a tool to have ideas and create ideas around the future.
Yeah, scenarios are for reflection in the here and now. I mean, that's what it is. Nobody knows the future, but thinking about it can make you decide, can make you shape the here and now in a better way.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your ideas. Thank you so much for sharing the principles of your fellowship. We've reached the end of the program, so we're finishing off for tonight. There's some things I have to say. That is that the book will be on sale, as I said, as of December 13th. It will cost €15, and you can get it through the Paphuis de Zwijger website and at the Atheneum bookstore at Spui, Amsterdam. If you'd like to read it as an audiobook, that is possible. Go to the website, and then you will have the PDF that you can add into your audio app. Our first Designing Cities for All triptych called Creating Cultures of Care will start on January the 31st. And it will start with the cities about caring episode about caring cities. The 7th of February we will talk about redesigning healthcare, and February 21st we will talk about practicing self-care. And the kickoff of the One World Fellowship is on January the 24th. Tune in, and hopefully we can welcome you again live here in the venue. That would be great, actually. And if you would like to have more information about Designing Cities for All, go to the website deswijger.nl DCFA. Well, this is all for today. Thank you all for watching. Thanks to our guests. And I would like to take this moment to thank Dimfy Brown as well for creating this program. We will wish you the best of luck. And, well, you can join us here on stage as well, Dimfy.
Well, let's officially give all the knowledge to our new fellows.
I will. I think that's a great idea. And let's raise our glass to you as well.
Yeah. So these are your books. And cheers to the second year.
And cheers to you as well.
Yeah,
there you go. Oh, there you go. Cheers. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks.